Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and transformational life coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome back to the Life with Grief podcast, and welcome to day one of my 5 days of holiday grief. This is sort of my spin on the 12 days of Christmas, if you will. But instead, we are digging into how to cope with and navigate grief and loss around the holidays. And I am so excited for this little series. I haven't done this yet on the podcast before, but this sort of just came to me, and I'm so excited about it because I really wanted to give you guys just some very impactful but bite-sized episodes that you can listen to when you're on the go or if you're just having a moment and needing just a little more support or inspiration or guidance on how to navigate the complexities and everything that is going on, everything that you're feeling this holiday season. And what better way to do that in sort of a mini-sode format. So this is day one, and I'm so excited to do this in 5 days straight. I think this is just going to be so awesome and so powerful for all of us to hear and come together and talk about and just acknowledge, because grief around the holidays is really freaking hard, you guys, as if it's not hard enough already all year round, right? So today, I really wanted to start off by just acknowledging those who are going to be or who are navigating their first holiday season after going through some loss. And of course, here on the podcast, we do typically focus on the loss of a loved one through a death, but I also want to acknowledge divorce here, ending relationships. I mean, our world, depending on how your life has looked this last year, your life might have been completely turned upside down this year, no matter what you have been through. And I want to just send you a huge hug and acknowledge you today for wherever you're at. That's my goal today. I just want to meet you where you're at. But I really want this episode to be geared towards those who are, just navigating your very first holiday, let's say without someone that you love with you, through whatever means that is. But this is 1000% for people who have already sort of been through the first holiday, if you want, because every holiday season, it's going to feel different. And by the way, this might not be like Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, like this of some typical holiday season things here, right? This could be relevant for a birthday, an anniversary, a death-iversary that's coming up, whatever sort of griefy milestone that you have that you're coping with or will have to cope with when the day comes, this is for you. So I just wanted to kind of first start by talking about where do we even start, right? What do we even do to wrap our head around approaching a first holiday after we have experienced a loss? Because that can feel very overwhelming, very confusing, very emotional, and you might just be like, Dara, where do I even start, right? So in this little shorty episode, let's just start with this. I think one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves, and one of the biggest main things that we can do, is to simply acknowledge the pain of the first holiday season without a loved one and do our best to prepare for that mentally and emotionally. But in saying that, I feel like I have to say there's really no way to prepare mentally, physically, emotionally for navigating a first holiday season without a loved one that we're missing, right? For me personally, for those who might know my story, for those who don't, my mom died on December 9th of 2019. So the holiday season for me is especially raw. It's especially bittersweet now. This is going to be 5 years. I can't even believe I'm saying this, you guys. This year is going to be 5 years without my mom. That's wild to say out loud. It doesn't feel that long ago. That's why I say this episode is also for people who are not just in, the first season without their loved one, because each and every holiday season brings up new, complicated feelings, the shock and the disbelief and the discomfort that we feel in year one looks very different year 2, year 3, year 5 can confirm that. So I think first and foremost, we just need to let's just acknowledge it. Let's just say that out loud, write it out, think it out loud that my holiday season is unfortunately not going to be what I had hoped for, what I expected, and what I am accustomed to. And really sit with that. And when I say sit with that, that's so hard to do, you guys. I want to acknowledge that. And I want to acknowledge that that is a painful thing to do and to even have to think about, right? We probably don't even want to think about it. But there is sort of it helps in the processing and the surrealness that so many of us are feeling of I cannot believe this is my reality. And I think, and the reason I say this, that I think this is such an important step in sort of navigating holiday season number 1, if you will, is because there can be so much shock and surrealism, if you will, around it, that our brain is still trying to catch up with everything. Not to mention those of us who have or could perhaps lose someone in this season. So when my mom was in the process of dying, I really don't have a better word to say that, Thanksgiving was coming up at the time I'm recording this. It's the same time frame. It's actually crazy sort of reliving this, but there was a time where we actually thought she might even be able to come home. I mean, she had a tracheotomy. It's not like she was going to be able to eat with us and that sort of a thing, but we thought, I don't know, by just some miracle, I guess, that she'd at least be able to be home with us. But then here we are. Thanksgiving comes around. I couldn't even tell you what we did for that Thanksgiving. I don't think we even did anything, to be honest. And then 2 weeks later, she was dead. It's crazy. You cannot make this stuff up. And you guys, like I said, I'm sitting here almost 5 years later, and there's parts of me that still cannot comprehend that. So I just want to encourage you to take the pressure off of trying to make sense of it and trying to understand it. I think that is one of the most difficult parts about grief and loss, is that we as humans, our ego, our emotions, we want to make sense of things that sadly oftentimes just don't make sense. There's no logic. There's no perhaps reason why. There's maybe there is, maybe there isn't some grander plan as to why we have gone through what we have, or why we have lost the loved ones that we have, or whatever the situation is. And all we can do as souls here, we're all here really on an even playing ground. We're all just here trying to live a beautiful, happy life. We're just here trying to figure it out. And we are wrestling with so many different emotions and trying to get used to a reality that we have never known before. So that's why I kind of joked earlier, there really sort of is no way to prepare. There sort of is no way to make it okay, make ourselves feel okay. So in saying that, my whole point with this rambling for a moment, bear with me. I have zero script here, you guys. I'm really just letting this kind of flow. But in that acknowledgement, which I sort of have alluded to being sort of step 1, if you will, step 2, so to speak, is to just do your best to know and understand that this holiday season is going to look and feel different. And to acknowledge that there is discomfort in that. There is dis-ease in that. There is profound sadness and anguish and longing in that. Longing for what we once had. My Christmases, my Thanksgivings have not even remotely looked and felt the same since my parents died. And especially the one, I mean, When my mom died, like I said, she died in December. My dad and I were alone. Holidays may have not even, they shouldn't have even been, they were not even a thing in that time frame. But then the following year, when I ultimately spent it with my now husband's family and everything, it was a beautiful day. I had fun, but it didn't feel like my holiday season. And it felt so empty, you guys. And if you are navigating a first holiday season, acknowledging that it is going to feel perhaps empty, very lonely, despite who you are around. You could be around some of the most amazing, supportive, uplifting people, but if it is not the person or the people that you are missing and that you love and just want back more than anything, of course, it's not going to feel right. Of course, it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to feel good. It might not feel joyful. It's not going to feel merry and bright, right? And I'm going to talk about that in one of these subsequent episodes that are going to come out here soon. But I think the biggest opportunity that we have as grievers is sadly to face our grief head on. And I say sadly because I know how painful of a process it is, but it is such a gift and it is such a powerful thing that we have the ability to face, that we can do that. And that says so much about you, and it says so much about your resilience. And not that it's about finding resilience or strength or anything like that, but it just says so much about you that you are now facing a very difficult season of life without whoever it is that you have lost via a death, via an ending relationship, whatever it looks like for you. Maybe an ending of a friendship too, right? Maybe it's these people that you would have normally spent Thanksgiving with, but something looks different now, or maybe you're even mourning not being geographically in a place where you normally would have been, or, maybe you've gone through a big move this year. Who knows? I really want to cast sort of a wide net here because the holidays can look so different for all of us, and depending what our circumstances are. 1000%, I feel the geographic thing too that I just mentioned, because I had some of my most amazing holiday seasons with my family on the East Coast, where I was born and raised until I was 10. And when we moved to California, we didn't have any other family here. And I mourned those holidays that I had as a child. For me, the holiday season, I really tend to go backwards. I don't say I live in the past, but I brought up longing earlier. I long for that. I miss that dearly. And it just makes me more motivated to want to have that sort of holiday season for my daughter and make sure she has the experiences that I was so fortunate to have as a child in her own way. And so with our grief, it's a balance of those two things, right? So it's giving yourself permission to feel so profoundly sad and upset and maybe angry and unsettled and maybe even fearful or sort of just uncomfortable with what this season is going to look and feel like for you now. Purely acknowledging that takes so much effort and strength. And whether you journal, whether you do a little bit of breath work, whether, you just sit in some silence, maybe you meditate, maybe you go on a walk to try and help process all of this. However, you can find an outlet for you to do that. I really, really encourage that. Talking to people, being very transparent with maybe people that are around you this holiday season, maybe the people that you're going to be visiting with instead, if you maybe are visiting or spending your time with other people that you maybe don't normally do, and just be really honest and acknowledge hey, my holiday season is not feeling very joyful. I'm actually really not okay. I'm really struggling. I just need a little extra love and support and compassion this season. I feel very out of my body. I am really in pain from missing fill in the blank. If you feel you're needing some relief from grief, ways to manage stress and anxiety, and a tool that gives you a dose of hope moving forward, listen up because this is for you. My 14-day Relief in Your Grief experience brings you powerful, impactful, bite-sized daily content alongside the perfect meditation. One of the biggest struggles I hear from my members and clients is that they sometimes just need some relief from the stress, sadness, and pain that grief and loss can cause. And this can pop up at any time, right? But here's the thing, so many people are kind of lost and unsure about where to start doing this. And this can feel like a huge thing to tackle when we're overwhelmed. So we are doing it together, and we're starting with just 14 days. Give me 2 weeks and I will help you begin to take that anxiety, heartache, and anguish and turn it into peace, clarity, and hope as you move forward. You have nothing to lose by joining, and it's all less than $40. I have no doubt these 14 days will be an inspiring, uplifting, and perspective-changing experience for you. Learn more and join through the link in the show description. So, the best thing we can do is to take some time to think about that. And if it's appropriate, or if you feel that it's helpful or necessary, communicating that to those around you. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in later episodes. But first and foremost, just giving yourself that permission to feel. And I just want to reiterate why it is so important and so okay to feel those conflicting emotions during the holidays. And when I say conflicting, I mean that, because we can feel, like I said, sadness, anger, resentment, all the negative, sad things under the sun, right? But we could also feel some joy. We could have some laughter mixed in there. We could end up going to a gathering and actually having a really good time. And there might even be some guilt around that, because especially if it is a first holiday season and you are quite literally taking this a moment at a time, a day at a time, and is sort of forcing us to find a balance between, okay, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? How do I honor what I'm feeling while allowing myself to have a good time if a good time presents itself? And also, how do I carry my loved one with me? But all the more reason we need to give ourselves grace, why we need to communicate what we're feeling. And if we are struggling, it's just even have one person in your life. Having the right people and the community in your corner filled with people who just get it, that is imperative. Just know that you're not alone. I am here for you. This community that I've built here is here for you. I mean, there's so many outlets and so many people struggling with and trying to navigate the holiday season just like you are. And it's not to compare. It's just so you know that there's thousands, probably millions of us that are all in our own boats in this way. And we can row up this river of loss, so to speak, together. And it doesn't have to feel so overwhelming. And the last thing that I just want to encourage here is, I mentioned communication with those around us, with family, with friends, and perhaps it's family and friends who are also struggling with a loss this year. I think setting boundaries is really, really important. And this is a really important thing as far as you honoring what you're able to manage this holiday season. So holiday season number one after a major loss, I feel like requires this. It kind of requires this every year, to be honest, but I feel like it, because it's so raw sort of in the first year, that setting boundaries with family, with friends, with colleagues, and understanding that it's okay to say no and not have to succumb to pressure to go to social gatherings or events or normal traditions that might feel overwhelming. It's so okay to take a back seat on that this year. Please give yourself permission, give yourself that gift. Do not overload yourself unnecessarily. And this is so hard, you guys, because sometimes we might be feeling good one moment, so we might commit to something, but then the next moment we're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have committed to that. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so sad. I'm having a really rough day. And these are the waves of grief, and they're brutal. And we might feel bad if we want to, we said yes, or we RSVP'd yes, and now it's a no or something like that. And really the biggest recommendation I have, like, let's say you did RSVP yes to something because you were feeling okay in the moment, but now let's say you're not feeling up for it or something, but you just, whatever the circumstances are, let's say you just cannot back out, right? Maybe go do your best to feel good about yourself, get dressed up, maybe buy yourself a new outfit, whatever you need to do to kind of make yourself feel good going into it. But know that perhaps you can excuse yourself early, or you can just have that honest conversation with the host, or whatever it is. I mean, listen, you guys, I'm not even above like making an excuse like, hey, I'm actually not feeling that great, or I'm feeling a little tired, a little worn down, like, I'm going to get out of here, but I really appreciate your time. I appreciate this beautiful gathering. I had a lot of fun. I'll be in touch, or, whatever it is, whatever is appropriate for the setting. But I just want you to feel empowered to make this holiday season feel good to you, and whatever you need to do to keep your head above water, even if that means like not even celebrating this year. Like, yes, that is an option. I know some people might be like, Tara, are you kidding? Like, I have friends, I have a family, I have whatever. I can't just check out of the holidays. Okay, fine. But think about how you can maybe pare back. How can you make this holiday season bearable for yourself? And in some other episodes in this little series, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about little ways that we can honor our loved ones, that we can keep their memory alive, and all the good things. So stay tuned for that. But really, I wanted this conversation today to be something that empowers you to know that 1000% this holiday season is not going to look and feel the same as it ever has. And I want you to know that it's okay to feel overwhelmed by the gravity of that. Your entire world has been completely shattered, thrown off its axis, however you want to think about it. So acknowledging how heavy that is, how dark that can feel, that's okay. That process needs to happen. And you can and you should acknowledge how deep that pain is, the pain of navigating your first holiday season without a loved one, or without whoever or whatever it is that you have lost, especially if it's happened in this last year. And knowing that, sure, there is no way to like properly prepare for that. It is just like grief, like in death, there is, you can't really prepare for it until it comes knocking on your door and you're faced with it. I encourage you to sit in that discomfort a little bit, perhaps even get curious about it. That's why I bring up journaling, talking through that with someone, even if you're just venting and it's like all you can say over and over is like, I just can't believe they're not here. I cannot believe we are having a Christmas without them. I cannot believe we have to go through Hanukkah without them. Whatever it is that you celebrate, whatever's coming up for you this season, doesn't matter. Acknowledging that it's going to look different, giving yourself that permission to feel that deeply, but also knowing and remembering that if little cracks of joy and sunlight and laughter come in, or you have a moment where you are actually feeling very grateful for what you do have, that is also okay, and let those moments in. Those two things can coexist. We are going to talk more about gratitude and what that means, and this holiday grief and how these things can coexist. More on that coming up in one of these episodes. But again, it's also knowing that it is well within your right and within your power to make this holiday season look and feel however you want it to. And if that requires setting boundaries, if that requires not going to maybe any holiday events or very minimal holiday events, that's okay. You do you. Maybe you're a bit more of a recluse this season, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it does help you to go out and be with people. Maybe it's a distraction. I mean, as long as you're doing things that are healthy and good for you, that's the only thing I encourage. We want healthy coping mechanisms, healthy things here, okay? But of course, splurging on dessert and all the yummy food that comes with the holidays, of course. But that's all we can do around the holiday season. 5 years in, that is what I've found. And also that every year is going to feel different. Every year is going to come with sort of a new set of feelings or challenges or perspectives on it. But I just want to encourage that too, especially again for those who are navigating year one. Please know that the perspective is going to change each year. Please know that it's probably not always going to feel as raw as it feels right now. It's not going to always feel as shocking as it is right now. There is a resignation. There's a processing that happens over time and with the right grief work, of course, that allows us to settle into the holiday season with a little more peace than we did the year before. Not that it ever feels quite right, not that it might ever feel good, but again, it's just allowing room for those little slivers of laughter and happiness and beauty to come into our holiday season, whether that is through the foods you eat, whether that's through the people that you're with, whether it's through holiday movies. I mean, whatever this looks like for you, whatever sparks the littlest bit of joy for you this season, a hot cup of cocoa, going ice skating. I mean, just relish in it. And like I said, we're going to talk about ways to honor our loved ones in another episode here coming up. But I want this episode to be about you and your grief and how to navigate it. And I want you to feel validated in the fact that navigating the holiday season after a major or even a minor loss is not easy. But as I've mentioned, you are not alone. There are resources to help you. Please check the link in the show notes for more on how I can help you through that. And if nothing else, this podcast and these griefy holiday episodes are going to be here for you to tune into and hopefully give you just a little inspiration, words of wisdom, ways to cope, and all the good things this season. So Day 2 coming tomorrow. Stay tuned. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you loved it, or if you think someone you know could benefit from hearing this, please share it or just share the podcast in general. I would so appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you know exactly when a new episode drops. And with that being said, I will see you tomorrow for Day 2. I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you are taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve, and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, membership, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.